there was no shortage of quote-unquote crises during the early part of my career, whether it was the first really EM debt crisis of the late 90s, the internet bubble of the early 2000s, and of course the global financial crisis. In all of those periods, some of the riskier bonds we've had in the portfolio didn't perform particularly well. However, the interest rate sensitive bonds, which tend to rise in times of stress, performed well. As a result, we really smoothed out the process for investors, and I really saw firsthand the power of this type of approach.
I always found the portfolio management team was more uncomfortable in times of quiet and more comfortable, in times of duress. And probably the best example that I experienced was the way the team came together in 2008. We debated, it was quite heated at times, and we decided the best course of action, was to add risk to American Income. And it felt very uncomfortable, right, to do it at the time. But we had the conviction, we had each other's backs in collaboration, and over the next several quarters, the next several years, that decision really paid a very handsome dividend, to our clients.
Obviously, the global financial crisis was a key point where we were able to take up risk successfully, but another one comes to mind for me. That's after the European debt crisis of late 2011, early 2012. Coming on the heels of the global financial crisis, many market participants felt like maybe we were headed for another 2008 outcome where most bonds would perform very poorly. We took the opposite view. The fundamental problem wasn't in the banking sector at the time, it was isolated, and the widening of spreads presented a tremendous opportunity to buy many high-yield and emerging market debt bonds.
Some of the drivers of success for American Income over the prior 30 years has been the disciplined approach to building a portfolio that balances credit risk with duration risk. When one works, the other one often struggles, but allows us to rebalance in stress markets.
We've built ourselves as managers that blend the best of fundamental and quantitative research. But in recent years, I think we've added a third pillar, and that is technology.
We have tools like Alpha, which help us in American Income to source liquidity, both to buy and sell bonds. We have systems like Prism, which help our portfolio managers stay on top of credits and credit ratings in emerging markets and developed markets. And a slew of other tools, right, that are really valuable to our portfolio manager and to operate the portfolio. So in stress periods like 2020, right, we may have gone through a few days of redemptions where we had to source liquidity and sell things in the market in order to meet those redemptions. However, right, as our tools started to identify value, identify securities that were particularly cheap, right, we were able to deploy capital, right, into those cheap securities. So the technology really helps our portfolio managers stay on top of the market, helps us tie the market pricing in sync with our research, and really helps us in a seamless way uncover where are there opportunities for our clients. We've been doing ESG before it was called ESG in the portfolio, looking at what are material, environmental, material, social, or governance risk across any security that we hold in our portfolios, including American Income. With ESG kind of being more formalized, right, in our process, we do want to understand for any company, for any securitized deal, any emerging market country we buy, right, what are those ESG risks, and could they potentially have a material impact on that entity?
When we think about managing risk for American Income, one of the key ways to do this effectively is to make sure that you have research coverage on the bonds that you buy, to make sure that your analysts can underwrite the credit risk throughout the cycle. We are typically intended to be long-term holders. It's expensive to transact. And so we want to make sure that we're comfortable that these bonds are resilient and that we can hold them for the lifetime of the bond in question.
投资一定有风险，基金投资有赚有赔。申购前应详阅投资人须知或公开说明书。